Hello all, a great afternoon, a warm welcome to each and every one of you. So I would like to welcome all of you to yet another live session of Narayana IAS Academy. So me on behalf of the Narayana IAS Academy is over here. That is for all of you who are watching for watching this particular video and series for the first time. This is Sureka Bhaskar and I am dealing with some important current affairs themes which are high potential areas for your upcoming preliminary examination. So this particular initiative of Narayana IAS Academy is the Prelims Masterclass 2025, targeting the upcoming prelims, where we, as you know, I have actually taken up the topics of environment and ecology. We've actually completed 10 classes and we moved on to the government schemes and discussed about different schemes under 17 different ministries of the government. Okay. Then we actually moved on, or these kind of these articles or the current affair topics have been picked up having in mind the kind of PYQ that the UPSC actually asks, and also all the topics have been covered for the which have been in use for the past 1.5 years, that is Jan 2024 till the current 2025 I mean the month of April has been covered. Okay, so after finishing environment and ecology and schemes and initiatives in use, now we are dealing with the reports and indices that are released globally by the global institutions as well as by our national institutions and ministries like the Ministry of Environment and Forest Change. You have the National Health Accounts by the Ministry of Family Welfare and Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and so on. Okay. So today will actually be the last class where we'll be discussing about the reports and the indices. We'll start with the global indices and we'll move on to the indices that has been released by the Indian government. Okay. Then after that, we will be starting with another important series, that is nothing but your important geographical locations as well as your international organizations, which become extremely important for your examination. Okay, so with not so much delay, let us quickly start with this particular series. Okay, so this is going to be your last class of this. So if you're watching this for the first time, please do visit and follow the remaining of the courses or the remaining of the classes also very diligently, because we've taken the most important topics that could appear in your examination. So as you can see in this screen, so we are dealing with reports and indices. Now moving forward, let me quickly run you through, because we have a lot to take up in today's class. So if you actually see, we started with the global reports. Okay, so we discussed about the gender equality report. Okay, so gender equality report by the World Economic Forum. We discussed about what is gender parity and also about this World Economic Forum. We actually saw what is the amount of gap or the gender gap that India has strived to close, and what are all the other sectors like the political empowerment or the economic opportunities where India is lagging behind. Okay. Next, we moved on to the World Intellectual Property Indicators 2024 that has been released by World Intellectual Property Organization, where we looked at the concept of intellectual property and also examples such as the patent, copyrights, geographical indication, etc. Okay. Then we moved on to understand about the arms import and exports, and this has been released as a report by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, that is SIPRI. Okay, so it has actually come up with the statistics of the status of the imports and exports of arms and ammunition across the globe, where India stands the second as the biggest importer following Ukraine. Okay, and our largest supplier happens to be Russia, and how India aims to diversify its import and exports, focusing on the Western nations as well. All that we actually looked at, we looked or discussed in this particular topic. Then we moved on to understand the report released by UNESCO on the status of the ocean report. Okay, where we saw how accessible and how safe, how productive should these particular ocean ecosystems actually be. Okay, so this is what we saw in this particular article released by UNESCO. Then we spoke about the World Migration Report, where we actually spoke about the statistics given by the World International Organization of Migration. We saw the pockets of concentration of the migration specifically people are moving towards Europe as well as Central Asia when compared to that of the West, because of the stringent laws, all that we actually saw over here. And also what is the quantity or the amount of remittances that India receives, and we have actually crossed the $100 billion mark, where we currently stand at $111 billion as remittances, the first being United States. Okay. Next, we moved on to the initiative or the report by the International Solar Alliance of 2015 that came up with the Global Solar Report of 2024. We saw what is the global solar energy potential and what has been the growing market dynamics with respect to the solar energy or the renewable energy sector. And we also saw what have been the targets of India and these scientific advancements in the particular sector of solar rooftop panels and all those things and the developments. Okay. Then we moved on to discuss about the World Drought Atlas, and this has been brought about by the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. We saw what is the status of droughts and how all the countries are actually prone to the drought like situation, whether it is aggravated by the El Nino condition. All that concept we discussed over here. Then we moved on to understand the UNICEF report on the state of the children. Okay, report 2024, where we saw there are going to be three major dimensions, or the three drivers or the factors that are going to have implications on the children by 2050, which actually includes your cutting edge technology, including your artificial intelligence. Next one is the triple planetary crisis, that is your pollution, climate change and biodiversity loss. And finally, we discussed about your demographic shift. Okay, so what are going to be the status of children by 2050, where India will be hosting maximum children, followed by China. Okay. Next, we moved on to understand the global state of forest reports that have been brought about by the Food and Agricultural Organization, where we saw the amount of deforestation has actually come down, the mangrove cover has actually increased, what are all the hotspots of wildfires, all that we discussed over here. Then we moved on to discuss about the food security information network that released this particular global food crisis report of 2024, where we looked into the concept of food security as well as food insecurity, and also we saw various parameters of food security such as accessibility, affordability, the safety, sustainability as well as utilization. Okay, so after discussing all that, we went to another concept of the plastic overshoot day report, where we discussed about the overshoot of the plastics, that is capacity of the countries to actually manage this particular release or the production beyond its when it goes beyond its capacity to manage it, or when it produces a particular quantity and when the country is not efficient enough to manage it, then what happens, that is what is called as plastic overshoot. Okay, so we discussed about this and also different regulations across the globe, such as the plastic waste management rules of 2024, the amendment to the 2016 rules, all that we discussed here. Then we moved on to discuss the Human Development Index, and here which has been given by the UNDP, and the three parameters it actually depends on: your health, your education as well as the standard or the quality of life. Okay, so here we discussed that India is almost having a score of around 0.64 with an improved HDI index. Okay, then we moved on to discuss about the status of the World Migratory Species Report that has been come up by the Convention on Migratory Species 2024, which is also called as what? This report is of 2024, and the Convention on this migratory species came up in 1979. Okay, this is also called as the Bonn Convention. India is an active part of it. Okay, so we also spoke about the Central Asian flyway, which is one of the migratory corridors for this particular species, and how it is important for us to conserve and prevent the habitat destruction, fragmentation, poaching, hunting of these particular animals. Okay, and also we looked at the different appendices, that is appendix 1, which actually conserves the species which are in the threat of extinction, and appendix 2, where it calls for the international integration to conservation of migratory species. Then we saw the WHO report, which was released on the road safety, So road safety report of WHO, which spoke about the increased occurrence or incurrence of accidents specifically in the low income and the middle income areas because of the porosity, or you can say the gaps in the governance structure. Okay, so we discussed about this and also saw what are all the various what to say global conventions like the Brasilia Declaration of 2015, and how we have the Road Safety Act, what are the expansion of provisions for Good Samaritans, etc. Next we saw the World Migrant Workers Report, state of them, which is actually released by the ILO. Again we saw what have been the concentration pockets of the migrant workers and why do they go, and of late what have been the shift in the status or the structure. So these are all the different global reports that we actually discussed. So how many are there? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15. See, in one slide we've actually covered 15 of the report. So this is how your note making also should be very very effective, where in one page you have to have maximum of the information, okay, so that it becomes easier for your revision. So after this, let us actually move on to the next slide. Looking at the reports we actually discussed, which have been by India. Okay, so national reports. The first one we actually started with the State of the Forest Report, that is 2024, that was released by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Okay, so this has actually come up with this particular report talking about what is the increase or decrease in the forest area, what is the meaning or the definition of forest cover, what do you mean by tree cover, whether mangrove cover has increased or not, what is the status of the carbon stock. Then we spoke about the mangroves and the decadal trends, that becomes extremely important. Okay, so we discussed that in this particular report. Next one is India Skills Report. So how much are the Indians skilled enough, that is upskilling themselves to be prepared to be observed in the labor market or in the international labor market as well. So this has been released by VBOX in coordination with All India Council for Technical Education. Then we saw also the the Association of the Indian Universities and Confederation of Industries and Innovation. Okay, so CII. Okay, then we actually moved on to the national health accounts. Okay, national health accounts is what is the total expense or the funding that the government actually gives for this particular sector of health. That is basically what is the government expenditure on health, what are the sources for this particular expenditure, what is the status of the out of pocket expenditure, whether it has increased or decreased over the years, what is the status of the health infrastructure in India, all that we actually discussed over here. And this is actually an initiative of Ministry of Health as well as Family Welfare. Next we moved on to the status of Men and Women in India Report 2024, which is an initiative of Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, where we spoke about the gender gap and what are the gaps again in availing the opportunities in what the health, the education, what is the life expectancy, the economic opportunities women actually get, the political empowerment that they miss out on, and the dropout rates from the schools, all that we had discussed. Okay, what is the teacher ratio, everything. Next one, we moved on to the annual status or the survey of education report, which has been released by the Pratham Foundation, which is an NGO. So here they have actually spoken about your enrollment ratio in education, and it is also spoken about whether which are the places which have achieved gender parity in education, what is the dropout rates, what are the reasons for the dropout rates, what is the percentage of teacher involvement, attendance, student attendance, as well as adoption of AI, whether all these are in line with the recommendations of the National Education Policy of 2020, all that we discussed over here. Then we moved on to discuss about the groundwater assessment report, and this has been released by Ministry of Jal Shakti. Okay, so this is very important and it is carried out by the Central Groundwater Board in order to assess how much of recharge of groundwater is being done annually in India and how much of extraction is being done, and the extraction is used for what are all purposes, for example the drinking purposes, the industrial purposes, and so on. Okay, so we discussed, and also what is the potential of the groundwater being polluted and which are the regions of major pollution, all that we discussed in this particular report. The next one, we moved on to the last report, which is the Leeds report. This is nothing but the logistic ease, which is actually extended towards different states. Okay, so this is by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, which talks about the entire logistics, that is from the place of production of a material, how it moves to the warehouse, how it is transported, and how it finally reaches the customer. So all that, what is the India's ranking and which country actually does better, all that we discussed in this particular article, okay, or in this particular topic. Then today we will be starting with this particular interesting topic, that is the indices. Okay, so these are global indices. So let us see, 1 minute, let me see if there are any comments which are awaiting us in the session. Okay, so let us actually continue. Okay, fine. So here we will be starting with what? We'll be starting with the network readiness index. Okay, so network readiness index, and this has been released by Portulans, an independent organization located in Washington DC. It talks about what is the capacity for different countries or the nations to leverage this particular digital technology in order to drive their economic growth, or be it the social inclusion that they want to give, or towards the sustainable development. Okay, so this is what we'll be discussing here, and then we will be discussing about the artificial intelligence preparedness index. So artificial intelligence preparedness index. Okay, so this has actually been yeah, so this is an the report where we'll actually discuss about how prepared are the countries in order to adopt as well as adapt to this particular artificial intelligence that has actually been booming. Okay, so this is artificial intelligence preparedness index. Next one is the, so this is by International Monetary Fund. Okay, very, very important. Next one, the Rule of Law Index. This is by the World Justice Project. Okay, this actually talks about how is the rule of law, which means what is the status of the civil justice system, the criminal justice system, whether fundamental rights are actually being implemented properly by the government, etc. All that will be discussed over here, and based on that the countries are ranked. Then we will be discussing about the global multidimensional poverty index. So this is again an index that actually measures the rate of poverty based on few indicators, okay, 10 indicators. And then India has also adopted the National Global Multidimensional Poverty Index with 12 indicators, including the bank accounts as well as maternal health. We will see what are all the indices, okay, or the indicators. So this is by the UNDP, okay, United Nations Development Program. And moving forward, we will be discussing about the Global Hunger Index. Okay, so the global hunger index is by wealth hunger life and concerns worldwide. So this is the body that actually releases, and we will see what is the status of malnourishment in India, because of which the children actually face what, the stunting, wasting, undernourishment, and women where they actually face this maternal mortality rate as well as the anemic conditions. All that we'll be discussing here. Then we move forward to understand the South Asia Power Index. Okay, so which country in South Asia is actually emerging to be very, very powerful. So here we will be discussing about this, which has been released by LOI, again an independent organization located in Australia. Okay, next we'll move on to the Global Innovation Index. So since it is innovation, it has been released by World Intellectual Property organization. Okay, so we'll be discussing about WIPO as well, when it was established, and it is an UN agency. It comes under the parent agency of this is ECOSOC. All these points are very important for prelims. Okay, so this we will be discussing. Then we will move forward to understand the global cyber security index. Okay, global cyber security index, and this is by the International Telecommunication Union. So we will be looking at what are the cyber security threats that India actually face, why is it actually happening, all that we will be discussing in this particular article. Then we will move forward to understand about the global cities index, cities index, and this is by Oxford Economics. Okay, we'll be talking about what are the categories based on which the cities are classified, which is the most livable city, all that we will discuss here. And then the last one is your environment, it's not the last one actually, environmental performance index. So this is by your Yale Center for Environmental Law. Okay, so here we'll be discussing about what has been the performance of different. One minute, I'm just not able to run this live session on my laptop. So there's some connection error that's running. So let me just open on my phone so that I'll be able to resolve your doubts. Okay. Okay. So now let us continue our discussion. Okay. So here we'll be discussing about the Yale Center for Environmental Law. What are the takeaways it has actually spoken with respect to the performance of different countries with respect to the environmental conservation. Okay. So this is what we'll be discussing. Okay. So apart from this, there are different other indices also where we'll be talking about the Liveability Index. Okay. Liveability Index, and then Energy Efficiency Index by the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. No, this energy efficiency index is the Indian index. Okay, so again, yeah, sorry, livability index and food wastage index. There are other indices also that we will be discussing. Okay, so after this we will actually move on to few indices that has been released by India. Okay, so this is actually your fiscal health index, fiscal health index that has been released by whom? Niti Aayog. Okay, so what is this fiscal health? What is the capacity of the country to manage its fiscal health? Fiscal means what is your revenue, and from where do you get your revenue? From there, what are the interests that you actually pay for your debt obligations? What is your expenditure? So how well India is able to manage is what we will discuss in this fiscal health index. Moving on, we will be discussing about the NIRF ranking, that is the National Institutional Ranking Framework that has been come up by the Ministry of Education, ranking the higher institutions depending upon the innovations or the change in the pedagogy that they have actually taken up for higher education in India. Okay, so we'll be discussing, and also the indicators or the methodology for ranking the institutions becomes very important. Next, we will discuss about another important topic, that is SDG India Index. SDG India Index, and this is of 2024, again brought by the Niti Aayog, where it's important for us to understand what are all the 17 SDGs, okay, and why is it important for the examination. You need to know about the SDGs, where India stands, and what are all the top performers, and which are the states that have been consistently performing well, which are the states that need improvements, all that we will see here. Next, we'll discuss about the Financial Inclusion Index. Financial Inclusion Index, and this is by the RBI. Okay, Reserve Bank of India. We will see what is the level of financial, what do you mean by financial inclusion? That is including maximum number or all the citizens, okay, specifically in the underserved areas or the unserved areas, in order to avail or to be able to access the financial services like your banking, your accounts, and the digital payments. All that has to be possible for them. So this is the financial inclusion index that has been come up by the Reserve Bank of India. Then you have the index on energy efficiency. Okay, energy efficiency index, and this is by whom? The Bureau of Energy Efficiency. So how energy efficient is India, and how is it actually transitioning from the non-renewable to the renewable sources of energy, and how are we cutting short our dependence? Okay, so on the fossil fuels, coal, etc., all that we will be discussing here. So with this we will be completing today's session, so that we are done with all the reports and indices as much as possible we have actually covered. Okay, so you can follow with 100% trust. Okay, so this is sufficient for your examination. Now I will take you through the indices one by one, but we are going to be very fast today. Okay, because we have almost around 27 topics to actually complete today. Okay, so let's see how far we are able to do. Now it is 2:36. Okay, so let's try to do it till 4 and just finish off all the topics. Listen, I am going to take you through only the trends, because that is only is important. What has been the decadal trend of India? Which country topped? Where India stood? What is the methodology and the indicators, or the the key parameters that are used for calculating a ranking? Okay, that is what is important, and that is what you need to take away. All these numbers increase from 5 crores to 10 crores, all that does not matter. So let us actually start with network readiness index. That is how well a country is able to leverage this digital technology, and how is it used for running its economy. So the economic growth. The next one, how well are you going to use this digital technology in order to bring about social inclusion or sustainable development, is what we will discuss over here. So India has actually climbed up 11 spots, okay, among the 50 countries in network readiness index. Now let's quickly see what is the network readiness index. It is a global tool to test your readiness. I already told you who releases it. The Portulans Institute. It is an independent organization in Washington DC. Here you need to understand, remember TPIG. Okay, what do you mean by TPIG? T actually stands for technology, P stands for people, next is governance, and next is impact. So these are all the 4 pillars. It is actually TPIGs, right? P is for impact. So these are all the pillars that this particular index actually uses in order to rank your country in terms of network readiness. So technology, where you have infrastructure, what is the digital platform, the connectivity, then the technological innovation, everything. Next one is people. Okay, how well is your human capital? How are they educated? What is the digital skills they have? Next one, the governance. What are your policies, regulations, initiatives that you actually bring, okay, forward, and what are the institutional frameworks in order to improve your digital infrastructure? Finally, the impact. So what is the final impact it's going to have because of your technological deployment? Okay, all that you will know. So ranks 133 economies, and over here India has actually climbed 11 spots when compared to that of the of the top 50 countries. Okay, now let's move forward. So India performed better, you understand, and it has ranked 49th. Has it performed better? Yes, 11 spots. So now it is 49, means earlier it was 60. Okay, so it has improved. The score also is not that important. You just need to know that we have improved. So the score improved, that is from improved 49.93 in 2023 to 53. Okay, and it has the second position among the lower and the middle income groups. Again, not important. Okay, so if you see what are all the key initiatives and achievements in terms of scientific publications, as well as the AI talent concentration, we got first. Then we got second in what? The building internet subscription and increasing the mobile broadbands, etc. What do you mean by mobile, I mean broadbands, that is the internet connectivity, the speed of the internet. Okay, we are trying to even bring up 6G. So we are performing better, and we are third in the domestic market scale and fourth in the annual investments that the government actually makes in the telecommunication services. Okay, so these are all the key achievements that India has done. And if you see what is the spread of teledensity, what do you mean by teledensity? Here, how much of telephone connectivity is actually provided per 100 people, available per 100 people. So telecom connectivity has increased from 75 to 84. Next, wireless connections are there. It has reached around 109 crore people. Then broadband access is there. 5G services we launched in 2022, and also now we have the 6G vision by increasing our investments in the technologies. Okay, so this is what is your network readiness index. Next one is your artificial intelligence preparedness index. I told you it has been brought about by the IMF. How well are the countries ready to adopt this artificial intelligence? Okay, like the chat GPT, the DeepSeek, etc. So brought about by the IMF 2023. So how countries are prepared to adopt the same, and then there are 4 metrics. Okay, so obviously for AI, what you should have? You should have a very good digital infrastructure. So digital infrastructure, how do you have a very, after having a digital infrastructure, you try to innovate. Okay, so innovation, and for all this to be in practice, first of all you have to have legal frameworks, and in order to achieve all this, you need to have whom? The human capital. So all these are the 4 metrics it is actually used for calculating this or ranking the countries. So if you see, Singapore is the country that tops the first with respect to that of AI preparedness, and then you can actually see Sweden over here with 0.75. So these are top 10 countries with respect to AI preparedness. Okay, so Singapore followed by Denmark, US, Netherlands, Estonia, as well as Finland, Switzerland, New Zealand. All these countries are there. So as I told you, Singapore ranked 1, score is 0.80 with AI investments over there, and Northwest European countries were doing comparatively better. Okay, so these are the top countries. Next one, if you see India's rank, it has a score of around 0.49. Okay, however, when you compare with the neighbors, you see China with a higher ranking of 0.63, and then Bangladesh over here and Sri Lanka with 0.43. Okay, so here India 72 out of 174, and then you have China 31st rank, then here it is 113, that is Bangladesh if you see is 113, and Sri Lanka if you see 92. Okay, just 20 ranks behind us, and India leads, okay, with 45% of respondents because we are using chat GPT. Okay, next one is India has 338 AI startups. So now we are also going to come up with our own national model, okay, just like the chat GPT. So this is India's position with respect to AI preparedness. Next one, I told you rule of law index. This is by the World Justice Project, which is located in the Washington DC, okay, United States of America. This basically, see, this is actually an annual report, World Justice Project, okay, and then it is in Washington DC. What is the work or the mission of it? The mission of it is working to advance the rule of law around the world. So you want to advance the rule of law, that is, it is based on different factors. Okay, so there are 8 factors. What are the 8 factors? One actually includes the civil rights, next one is the criminal rights or the criminal law systems, and how well do you do the how well the government actually implements the fundamental rights, as well as whether there is an absence of corruption or not. Okay, all that it is actually seen here. So what if there is any constraint on government power, absence of corruption, open government, fundamental rights, order, security, regulatory framework, as well as civil, as then criminal justice. So this covers 142 countries, highlighting the trends in governance, etc. Here we will actually see how has India performed in the overall rule of law. Okay, so if you see in 2015 we had a score of around 0.5, 51, and then now you can actually see 50. Okay, so how have actually we performed in 2024? Do you understand? So there is actually the global performance for the seventh consecutive year. The rule of law has actually declined in 57% of the countries. Okay, and India's performance earlier, it actually ranked around, it was lesser than this one, I think. So India ranked 79th out of 142 countries. Okay, so we just have a very slight improvement. Okay, now India, when compared to the South Asian nations, it actually ranks third. And income ranking is, it is 8th when compared to the, again not important, when compared to the low income countries it is 8th. Okay, so here Denmark and, as usual, the Scandinavian countries have actually performed better. And in the South Asian nations, I told you India ranked the third. And then among the G7 nations, Germany ranks fifth. Again, this is not important. Okay, so where India ranks and behind whom and whether we have performed better or not, there has been a slight improvement. That is what they say. Okay, so earlier we were lagging. Okay, and now you can actually see that we have performed better. Now, the next topic is Global Multidimensional Poverty Index, and this has been brought about by the UNDP. Okay, so how much of poverty among conflict is actually going on is what is this particular report says. Okay, so it is a poverty measure, and that actually says the multiple deprivation that the poor people actually undergo, not only in terms of food but also in terms of health, in terms of education, okay, as well as the standard of living. So it's an annual report that is come up by the UNDP. It has 10 indicators which is spread across what? Your health, education and the standard of living. And every, see, under health you have two more indicators. Health is one dimension. So next one, you have the education, there are two more dimensions, and then you have 6 dimensions under standard of living. So these are the 10 indicators based on which the global this poverty index is calculated. And added to this, India has adopted the national targets by including what? Two more indicators, that is what? Your maternal health as well as your bank accounts, which we will see. Okay, don't worry, let me erase this. So there are 10 indicators. Okay, so 10 indicators across 3 different dimensions, and the ranking or the score actually ranges from 0 to 1. Okay, and higher the value imply higher the poverty. Okay, so if it is somewhere around 100, that means it is extreme or severe chronic poverty. Okay, poverty. Okay, and also whatever are the indicators, if a person is deprived of 1/3 of these indicators, then the person is actually said to be in what? I mean, 1/3 of the indicators, those who are deprived of it, they are actually supposed to be, or they are considered to be in multidimensional poverty. When they don't have access to 1/2 of it, then that is extreme multidimensional poverty. Do you understand? So for India, the global MPI actually uses the data from the National Family Health Survey. Do you understand? And Niti Aayog, very important. Niti Aayog is the nodal agency that is actually responsible for monitoring the mechanism of global MPI, that is the multidimensional poverty index in India. Do you understand? So here it is 0 to 1. 0 actually means that you are in extreme multidimensional poverty. Do you understand? Again, you need to know, even we saw in HDI, okay, where it is calculated from 0 to 1, where India had a score of 0.64. That means we have performed better in the HDI. Okay, so similarly, this is also from 0 to 1. You need to know 0 actually means what? It means you have no poverty, and 1 actually means you have maximum poverty. And similarly, in gender gap also we saw 0 to 1. Okay, so 0 means what? Don't think it is no gender gap. It actually means the country has done nothing. So you have absolute imparity. Okay, so here it means no imparity. So here you need to know how it is calculated. What does 0 indicate and what does 1 indicate? Okay, so now let's move forward and see our this one, National Multidimensional Poverty Index. This, as I told you, it is developed by the Niti Aayog. Okay, so Niti Aayog, measures the multidimensional poverty at both the state as well as the district levels. And this retains the 10 indicators but adds 2 more, that is maternal health as well as the bank accounts. Now let us actually see this particular infographic. Very important. So first you have health. Under that you have 2 indicators, that is under health what? You have the nutrition as well as the child and the adolescent mortality. So these are the 2 indicators. Next one, under education you have years of schooling and the attendance, how regular you are to school. Next one, in standard of living you have the sanitation and what is the access you have to housing, electricity, and then you have assets as well as cooking fuel, all that is calculated. So total these are 10 indicators across the 3 dimensions for global multidimensional poverty, whereas for national there are 2 more that is added, that is maternal health and bank accounts. Okay, so we have 12 indicators as national, and that the nodal agency is the Niti Aayog, which oversees the implementation. Okay, so let us actually move forward and see the next one, global hunger index. Okay, so this is actually by the Wealth, Hunger, Life and Concern worldwide. So let us move forward and see what is this particular report. So this is also an annual report which is by this Wealth, Hunger, Life and Concern worldwide. This actually talks about what is the status of hunger at the global level, at the regional level as well as the national level. So there are 4 main indicators. Again, you need to understand what do you mean by hunger. One is undernourishment. Because of hunger, what you will have? Undernourishment. That is your first indicator. The second indicator, because of undernourishment, what happens? The child will actually lose all its weight. Okay, so when the weight is below the normal, then it is called as wasting. And when that is, wasting is there because of deficiency, you also have stunting, where the child does not grow above a particular height for their corresponding age. And because of all these factors, sometimes there can be death also. So which means what? Your child mortality. So these are the 4 indicators based on which the the index is actually calculated. Undernourishment is your insufficient calorific intake. The child stunting is you actually have a low height. Child wasting is you do not have the proper weight for that particular height. And the mortality is finally dying before attaining the 5th year of age. Okay, so under 5 mortality. So this is what is the global hunger index. You can see here, first is undernourishment. This is 1/3. Then child stunting 1/6, wasting and mortality, and this cumulatively together makes the GHI score. Okay, so here if you see, it is from 1 to 100. Okay, or 0 to 100, 1 to 100, sorry. GHI score is there, where it means, see here, it is actually when it is above 50. What does that mean? It means that you are in an extremely alarming state. Okay, and in an alarming state means when you actually have a score between 35 to 49 out of 100, and then you are in serious when you are 20 to 35, and then you are moderate when you are 10 to 19, and finally you are low when it is less than 10. Okay, so this is a pointer scale of 100. Okay, so where India is, we are in this serious category, and the data for all this is provided by what? Internationally recognized sources only, where undernourishment is provided by UN Food, that is FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization, and then about stunting and wasting, it is by UNICEF, and then it is by the WHO, it is by World Bank Demographic Surveys, etc. Next one, you have the mortality, it is by the United Nations group on mortality, children mortality. Okay, so these are all the sources, and this is the weights that is actually given. And if a person does not have access, or if it is deprived of 1/3 of it, that means he or she is in multidimensional poverty. When they don't have access to more than half of it, that means it's extreme multidimensional poverty. That's it. So we are done with this particular global analysis. India's performance, we rank 105 out of 127 countries, and our status is actually serious status. And if you see the score, it's 27.3. We saw, right, it's in the serious condition. So undernourishment is 13.7%, that is 13.7% of India's population are undernourished. Then child stunting. So children above 5, 35% of children who are above 5 have chronic undernutrition, because of which they face this child stunting. Next one, 18.7. So again, children under 5, 18.7% actually face this wasting, and then 2.9% of the children actually die before their 5th birthday. So this is what is the hunger status of India, and change compared to that of the previous year. So earlier India was not even doing better, that is in 2000 we were around a score of 38.4, but currently we are 27.3. We have actually improved, but then the situation is still critical because we have serious condition of under, the multidimensional poverty. Okay, now Asia Power Index. Okay, so this report has actually been given by Lowy, and here you find that India has surpassed Japan in its power influence in this particular Asian region. Okay, so according to the Asia Power Index or report, India has surpassed Japan to become the 3rd ranked power in Asia. So what are the first two? It can be China as well as Russia. Okay, because it's an Asia Power Index report. Now we will move forward and see. So this is the annual measure of what is the power dynamics that this particular country holds in the Asia Pacific region. It is published by the Lowy Institute, which is an independent international think tank which is located in Australia. Okay, so here it talks about what is the capacity of a particular country and what is the kind of regional influence that the country can actually have over here, and in what way, or what's the capacity in order, what's the capacity of a country to change the international order or the international environment. So this is what is the index. Okay. Next one, the methodology. It is basically based on the 8 characteristics or 8 indicators. Okay. So one is actually resource based determinants. These are 2 determinants. One is based on the resources a country can actually have influence, or based on the influence the country can actually have the stand, or it can actually influence the global order. Okay, so under resource based, it's further broken down into 8 measures. What are the 8 measures? What is the economic capability? What is the military capability of a country? And what are the resources that it actually holds? And finally, it's the resilience of the country in order to withstand any kind of trade war or economic shocks, etc. Next one, the influence based determinants are economic relations. Then what is the defense network it has? The cultural influence like the soft power, the spread of Buddhism, and then the yoga which is spreading to the westernized world. All that are example, and the diplomatic influence we will have. Okay. So over here, this is only being spoken over here. So 27 countries across the Asia Pacific are included over here, and the new addition in 2024 is Timor-Leste. This is actually an area in Southeast Asia, country in Southeast Asia with Delhi as the capital. Okay, so this has been the recent addition. So this is about the Asia Power Index. Okay, now we will see what are the 10 most powerful countries in the Asia Pacific region. The first, of course, is United States. Okay, so US, China, India, Japan. So here only India was there, but now it has surpassed. Then Australia, Russia, South Korea, then Singapore, Indonesia, as well as Thailand. Okay. Next, India is rising slowly. Yes, we have actually seen, okay, because it has a lot of potential with respect to its diplomacy as well as the resources. And also, if we see, Japan is hardening up, okay, because now it is slowly changing from the economic and cultural powerhouse to one much more active in defense and the security cooperation. Okay. So this is your Asia Power Index. Now, let's move to the South Asian powers. See, all this is not important. You just have to know that now we are moving from a bipolar world to a tripolar world, where Japan is also becoming a leading player. So this is what this particular topic actually says. Not very important. You just know what the index is. Next one, Global Innovation Index. Okay. So if you see, among 133 global economies, India has actually backed, or it has actually achieved the 39th position, okay, in the Global Innovation Index, and it is actually moving up, okay, or you can say India has performed better, and this particular index has been released by WIPO, that is World Intellectual Property Organization. So India has achieved 39th position among 133 global economies, and it has moved from the 40th rank out of 132 economies. So it is an improvement. So India has improved. Okay, next one. So first we will see about this particular WIPO. So this is actually a specialized United Nations agency. Okay, so United Nations agency which actually deals with all the intellectual property services or anything related to intellectual property, whatever is the policy, the information, the cooperation with respect to that, all that is taken care of by the WIPO. Okay, so this was established in the year 1967 and came into force 3 years later, 1970, by the WIPO Convention, and it is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, and currently it actually has around 193 members. India is a part of it or not? Yes, India is a part of it. Okay, and the parental organization under which WIPO actually falls is what? The ECOSOC. Okay, so the United Nations Economic and Social Council. Okay, and then the treaties which are actually under WIPO are a number of treaties like the Washington Treaty, Paris Convention, the Treaty on the Trademarks, etc. And then it has certain key publications, very, very important. One is World Intellectual Property Report, and next is Global Innovation Index. Global Innovation Index and Intellectual Property Report. Okay, so the index methodology is it uses 80 indicators. Okay, so let us actually see what it is. See, all these 80 are not important, but just you have to know the Global Innovation Index, and then it is again, you know, the ratio, this is divided into the innovation output subindex and the input subindex, where you have the institutions, the human capital, infrastructure, then what is the sophistication of market, everything related to intellectual property as well as innovation. Okay, and then the knowledge and the technology output. So there are totally 80 indicators, all this includes. Okay, so not that important, just know the report released by who? India has actually performed better, that's it. Now let's actually move forward. Key highlights, which is the top performer with respect to you know, innovation. So according to that, Switzerland is the topmost. Okay, and this is actually for the 14th year in a row. And if you see, the topmost innovative economy after Switzerland is Sweden, US, Singapore, United Kingdom, South Korea, and we do not actually have a place in the top 10 because we are still in the 39th position. However, an improvement from the earlier 40th position. Okay, so if we see with respect to India in all these, okay, with having you know, the intellectual property asset intensity, or with respect to any kind of you know, the growing clusters of science and technology you know, ranking, as well as regional and economic leadership, and there has been consistent growth in innovation. So in India has been performing consistently well in all this, as I told you, consistent growth in innovation, regional and economic leadership, because we are being the top performer. Okay, India is also called as a bridge or the peacemaker, okay, or of the emerging global south. So it is very, very powerful, and there are science as well as technology clusters where we got the 4th place in the, you know, ranking, with major cities like you have Mumbai, Delhi, Bengaluru topping the list. And then you have global standing in intangible asset intensity, okay, where intangible assets also we are doing better. And then innovation outputs and inputs 2024, where we ranked 33rd. All this is not important. Okay, not important. I am just giving you an idea of how India has performed. Now let's talk about the cyber security index. Okay, so India has secured tier 1 status in the global cyber security index. So who releases this global cybersecurity index? It is the International Telecommunication Union. Now let us see what is cyber security. Okay, so there are a lot of you know, cyber security threats. Okay, so also cyber crime is different. So all these are associated only because of the increasing cyber crimes as well as you know, advent of technology. there are a lot of prospects for the ransomwares and other viruses which can actually intrude our databases and take away. Okay, the countries can actually infringe, or you can say they can get into your system and they can take away the essential data. In order to stop that, a country should actually come up with the cyber security frameworks. Okay, they must have legal measures, and they must actually have the technical expertise, as well as you should have the organizational measures that actually have to be there, like the government bodies and the institutions must be aware of all this and have to be come up, and they have to come up with essential what to say frameworks in order to deal with it. So this is what we are discussing here. Just a minute, let's see. Okay, so internet has actually been restored. We will see. Okay, so we will see here. So this particular cyber security index is a marking, benchmarking in order to assess the measure. Okay, so what is the commitment, or to what extent a nation has committed to increase your cyber security framework annually by the International Telecommunication Union. So it actually has different indicators or key areas based on which it assesses. One is the legal measure. So what are all the laws and regulations that the country is coming up with? Next is technical measure. What are the tools which are used? What are the systems that are used? Next is organizational methods. Okay, that is how well the organizations or the institutes and the governments are handling these kind of the cyber security issues. The next one is capacity development. Okay, so what this means is there has to be educational. Okay, so there has to be what? Educational initiatives in order to develop the skills of the people and motivate them or create awareness in the field of cybersecurity. And finally, cooperation between the countries in order to improve them. So it has a 5-tier analysis. Okay, so India is over here. Okay, with maximum capacity or the potential of having a good cybersecurity framework. So tier 1, tier 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, where the top countries will be scored, ranked under 95 to 100, which has a score. So that will be tier 1, and this is actually tier 5, 0 to 20. So India has achieved the tier 1 status. Okay, so India has scored 98 marks. Okay, so top score, and we are among the other role model countries. And what are the different measures India has actually taken with respect to cyber security? We discussed, right, the IT Act of 2000, and then we have the telecommunication or the National Cyber Security Policy of 2030. Then you have the Personal Data Protection Act that has recently come up. Then we have the community we actually have the computer emergency response team, that is the CERT. And then we have the capacity development program. So all these things we actually have. Okay, so these are the measures taken by India, and that is why we are one of the top performers in the what to say the GCI, that is cyber security index. Next one, global cities index. This is by the Oxford Economics. So they have actually this is actually an independent advisory firm only, so that has come up with the global cities index. And what does this cities index actually talks about? Okay, so this particularly ranks approximately 1,000 cities across the world. Okay, and it uses 5 categories. Okay, so what is the economy of a particular city? Okay, so how much of human capital it actually has, what is the environmental sustainability measures that they actually take, and then the quality of life over there, and all the frameworks, legal frameworks, that is basically the governance. Okay, so 5 include: one is your economy, next one is your human capital, next is your quality of life, next is environment, and next is your governance. Okay, again these are all marked on the basis of 1 to 100, and whoever scores 100 will be the topper. Okay, so this is what it is. So now let us actually see, according to the reports, the 1,000 largest cities account for 60% of the global GDP. Okay, so which are the top 3 countries having the maximum cities? One is China, 159 cities, followed by United States, 92 cities, and India has 91 1 cities, and which are all the cities, that is the top 10 cities of the world. Let's say the first one is New York, USA, next is London, San Jose, then Tokyo, Seattle, USA again. So major of the cities are actually from the United States of America. Okay, so these are the top 10 cities. Okay, now what is the status of Indian cities? So Indian cities actually have a lower ranking only, but somehow we appeared in the thousand, the top 1,000. So let's see, the reasons are the significant deficit of human capital. Even if we have the human resources, they are not upskilled and they are not suitable for being absorbed in the labor market. And we also have very poor performance. Why poor performance? In terms of quality of life that we actually provide. See, in a country which has a huge incidence of the multidimensional poverty index, when we are not able to give food or cater to the basic amenities of the poor, then imagine whether we will be a suitable city or not. Please tell me. We can't be, okay? But at the same time, we are scientifically so, forward, that we are one among the best elite nations to send Chandrayaan to space, right? To land in the moon. So, anyways, that's the irony. So top Indian cities, the highest ranked Indian cities are Delhi, Bengaluru, Mumbai, Chennai, followed by Kochi. There are other places like Kolkata, Pune, Thrissur, etc. So the lowest ranked city is Sultanpur in Uttar Pradesh. Okay, it ranked last in the index, that is, it's the 1,000th city. Okay, so this is what it is. Now let's move forward to the next one, the Environmental Performance Index. This is by the Yale Center for Environmental Law. So here India ranked 176th. Okay, let's see what is this Environmental Performance Index, and it is actually a biennial index which actually comes once in 2 years. It speaks about what are the policies and the efforts that are taken by a particular country in order to conserve the environment. So that is what it is. Publisher is Yale Center for Environmental Law, as well as the Columbian University Center for International Earth Sciences Information Network, in collaboration with WEF, that is the World Economic Forum. Okay, so there are 58 indicators and across 11 issue categories in order to see, there are different issues, right? Like climate change, what is the ecosystem vitality, as well as your environmental health. So these are the 3 policy objectives under which the ranking is actually made, and it ranks around 180 countries. Okay, so out of 180 countries, we have ranked 176. Not a very good sign. So let's actually see. This is what other, these are the 3 dimensions that I actually told you. You have the ecosystem vitality that actually measures around what, 45% of the total weightage, which includes what, your biodiversity and the habitat. You have your forest, how much of efforts or the policies you bring for agriculture, the fisheries, the water resources, how do you combat the menace of air pollution, be it air pollution, etc. Then you have your environmental health. Okay, so here you basically speak about the air pollution or the air quality. Okay, so what is your quality of air? So this maximum is 17%, and then sanitation and drinking water, and the methods you take for the waste management, heavy metals, etc. And then is your climate change mitigation. Okay, so mitigation and adaptation measures we already discussed as a part of our climate change topic in environment and ecology. Okay, so here this is what it is, and the major findings of the index: Estonia has actually performed extremely well in terms of their environmental performance, followed by Denmark. I really don't know what these, how these Scandinavian countries are able to perform so beautifully. So if you guys have a chance, please do visit and see how the economy operates and how disciplined people are. Okay, so the report shows that only 5 countries, Estonia, Finland, Greece, Timor-Leste and the United Kingdom, cut their GHG to such an extent that they can achieve their carbon neutrality by the year, or net zero neutrality by 2050. So that is the reality. Only 5 countries are there. Whereas if you see the other countries like sub-Saharan Africa, as well as the countries in Southern Asia, they are lowest in terms of their environmental promises. So India's rank 176th out of 180. Very, very poor ranking. Why? Because we have air quality issues. Okay, so again we should never compare with Pakistan, Bangladesh and Nepal. Okay, so our economy for a country which is ready for cyber security. Okay, so our cyber security ranking is what? We had a score of around 98. For a country which can adopt or adapt to artificial intelligence or extreme levels of cyber security, and who is very well progressed with respect to what to say, the scientific developments that are happening here. We have a good research community, the governance structure is good. For a country like that, we should never compare with a country which is still growing or which is still trying to come up to the pace where India actually stands today. So always look and take global examples which have success stories from Scandinavian countries or like Denmark as well as Sweden, etc. How they are performing well, how are they able to capitalize from the human resources that they actually have, how are they skilled differently from that of Indians. That is how we need to think. We should always have a vision in mind. Okay, we should be visionaries, okay, rather than comparing with those countries which are having a backseat, which are looking at us as examples. We should never compare with them. Next one, our projected emissions by 2025. Okay, so we have projected emissions that have actually ranked us low, and then we are also considered to be one of the largest transboundary emitters. That is mean that what do you mean by transboundary emission? What you emit here, that is, for example, if you take vehicular emissions or the industrial effluents that actually reaches till Bangladesh, or the industrial effluents that you leave in the Ganges that reaches there as Padma, and then you have the Teesta river. So all the industrial effluents that you release over here, what happens? The downstream or the lower riparian state of Bangladesh actually has the or faces the consequences. Okay, so there you should actually be very careful. And also we have impacts of climate change, and there is an absolute need for the investments. Okay, so all these are the points which are important for you to understand. Next one, World Press Freedom Index. Okay, World Press Freedom Index. So let us actually see. So the recently the World Press Freedom Index has actually been released, and this is released by whom? The Reporters Without Borders. Okay, so here India's score has again declined, okay, over the past year. Our ranking has improved, but our score has actually declined. Let's see what is this particular report. So how much of has been the authority of the government on the journalist, or how much freedom does the or has the government given to the what to say, the press, okay, which is considered to be the fourth pillar of democracy. So let's see. It's an annual report released by the global media watchdog Reporters Without Borders. And so Reporters Without Borders, name itself signifies. So 180 countries are actually marked based on different categories. Okay, so what is the political context of your country? What are the legal framework your country actually has? Okay, and then there is socio-cultural context and security. It only deals with press freedom. Okay, so this does not speak anything about the quality of journalism. So it does not mention on quality of journalism, but only the amount of freedom that you actually have from the government. Here if you see, there has been a global decline in the press freedom. So overall itself, the press has actually been little bit suppressed by the government. The leading nations, again, whichever has the maximum is, see, again, Norway. Then European Union, all the countries over here in the European Union are actually having a good press freedom. Worst performers are Eritrea. This is actually at the bottom of the list, and Syria. This is at the second bottom. Next one, India's ranking. It has improved, however, ranking has improved, but the score has decreased. There's a lot of difference, right? Ranking has improved means before that, whichever countries were there, they would have performed worse than us. Okay, so we have moved 2 scales up, but still our score, that is the amount of freedom that we actually give for our journalist, has decreased. Okay, now next one, World Cyber Crime Index. Okay, so there's a lot of cyber crimes. Okay, like you have the digital fraud, right? And then you have wait. Okay, so you have this digital fraud or sending some kind of a ransomware where you actually attack, and then where you attack the database of a company or any kind of a government institution or a research institution that you actually do. And then there are credit card scams that are actually happening. So all these are part of cyber crime, and it is very surprising if you know the topmost, the country which has the most number of cyber crimes or cyber frauds is Russia. Okay, so let's see. India was ranked number 10 in the World Cybercrime Index 2024. So what is this? It is a global ranking of countries by the amount of cybercrime threat that they actually have. Okay, so roughly 100 countries are actually taken here, and it identifies the hotspots according to various categories of cybercrime. It can be, as I told you, ransomware, credit card theft, as well as different kind of scams. So who develops it? The University of Oxford and the University of New South Wales. Okay, so let us actually see 5 major categories of cybercrime which have been assessed. The first one, technical products or services. That is, you just send them any kind of malware, or by coding you actually develop some kind of malware like the ransomware, etc. And then you actually give access to the compromised systems. So all these are examples of technical products. Next one, attacks and extortion. Okay, so again here you have ransomware and denial of service attack. So this is another category of crime assessed by the index. Next one is data or identity theft itself. Okay, that is, you have all these methods like phishing, and then you have the hacking, then you have the credit card credit card, all that cheating that you actually do, all that comes under data or identity theft. Next one is scam. Okay, so here again there will be online authentication scam, okay, or online scam, and also business email compromise. All these are examples of scams. Next one is cashing out or money laundering. Again, you actually you create money mules, that is an account of somebody who don't even exist, or in the name of somebody else, doing money fraud and illicit virtual currency platforms. All these are different categories of cyber crimes that are assessed by this particular report. So let's see the toppers. That is, Russia is actually the top, and it is followed by Ukraine, China, US, Nigeria, as well as Romania. Okay, so specialization in cybercrime, Russia and Ukraine are actually there, and for that technical cybercrime capability, and India is also ranked, okay, on the 10th in the index. And we don't do any kind of too much of technical ones, but then we have the, what to say, payment fraud that is actually happening over here. Okay, and cybercrime characteristics, it was identified as a balanced hub. Okay, balanced hub means we are not too much on the extreme, but we don't, it's not that we don't do it also. So anyways, it's not actually a good sign. Okay, so this is the identification. The next one, corruption perception index. Okay, so how much of the presence or the absence of corruption is actually in India? What is the perceived level of corruption in the public sector? So what do you mean by corruption? It is actually nothing but taking advantage, or what you say, not following the orders, or whatever, misusing the powers that you are actually entrusted with, is called as corruption. So this is actually released by whom? The Transparency International. Okay, so here let us see about the index. So perceived levels of corruption in the public sector. So if you see, the corruption perception index itself actually says that when there is an abuse of entrusted power for your own gains or the private gain, then it is actually called as what? It is called as corruption. Okay, so how India's corruption score has actually changed? So earlier it was around 36, and then towards 2023, if you actually see, it is around 39. Okay, so now let's move forward. How it is actually calculated on a scale again of 0 to 100, which means when you're 100, it doesn't mean you are very what to say, it doesn't mean you are completely corrupt, it means you are very clean. So India actually has a score of what? 39. So that is actually the meaning. Previously we saw, right? So the data collection, it actually gets data from very legit international organizations like the World Bank, the World Economic Forum, etc. So scale of 0 to 100, and 0 means highly corrupt and 100 actually means very clean. So India 39, not so good, right? Anyways, it covers 180 countries and territories. Okay, now let's move forward. Again, Denmark tops. And then countries at the bottom, Somalia. Look at the rank, it has 11 only. And then you have South Sudan, Syria, as well as Yemen, between 13 and 16 are at the bottom. And this is mainly by what? The armed conflicts that are actually taking place there, as well as the crisis in the governance structure. That is, the civil war is taking place over here, right? So that is what it means. Next one, India's ranking. So India is ranked at 93 out of 180 countries. Out of 180, it is 93, and we have a score of 39, and earlier it was 40, we have come to 39. Okay, so this is what it is. And then comparison with the neighboring countries, this I am not going to do, because we should never compare with our neighbors. We should compare with Denmark. So this is what. Next one. About Transparency International, it is actually a CSO, that is a global civil society organization that works against corruption. Okay, so this is to just promote transparency, accountability, as well as integrity across different countries of the society, and then it targets corruption at all levels. Okay, so starting from your local governance to multinational corporations, there should be no corruption. This is what it says. It is actually, you know, an ideal model, but then I don't think it is possible. Next one, it has been publishing the Corruption Perception Index, and this has been since 1995. Okay, now let us quickly move forward and see the Henley Passport Index. Okay, so Henley Passport Index, so here it actually says that visa free destinations. What are visa free destinations? To visit a particular country, we must hold visa, right? In that visa, for example, if you're going to Dubai, you need to have a visa that says that I'm going to be here for so many days, I'm going to stay at a so and so what to say, resort or so and so restaurant, and then you need to say what is the purpose of your visit and all those things. And only when the country actually allows you to travel or gives you the visa, then you can travel. But there are certain countries where you need not even have the visa. For example, India can go visa free, Indians can go visa free to countries like Indonesia, Mauritius, and then we can go to Sri Lanka, etc. Okay, so similarly, let us actually see. So the Henley Passport Index actually assesses what are the powerful visas. For example, Japan has one of the most powerful visas, that is the nationals can visit around more than 100 countries, I think, okay, without a visa. So the average number of visa free destinations have actually increased. The publisher is Henley and Partners. It is a London-based global citizenship, and it is a advisory firm. Here the ranking category is number of destinations that allow visa-free entry into the, to their passport. So data source and scope, the data is actually taken from the International Transport Association, and this actually analyzes the passports of 199 countries and 227 travel destinations. Okay, so the top position is actually backed by France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Singapore, and Spain. That means citizens can travel to around 194 countries and of the 227 global destinations without visa. Okay, next one, world's least powerful is Afghanistan. Okay, so because it has lot of insecurity and volatility that is actually happening, that is further followed by Syria, Iraq, Pakistan, as well as Yemen. So this is what it is. Now let's move forward to the rank India actually got. India is ranked 80th. Okay, so India is ranked 80th, which is 3 places better than the 83rd, which actually has, and it shares its rank with that of Uzbekistan. Okay, so now India can travel to 62 countries without visa. Please do read about these 62 countries, including popular destinations I told you: Indonesia, Thailand, Mauritius, Sri Lanka, and Maldives. And visa-free destinations, average number has actually increased from 58, which was in 2006, and now it is around 110, okay, in 2024. Next one, Climate Change Performance Index. I told you the See, don't confuse between environmental performance index and climate change performance index. Okay, so the ranking of India in the climate change performance index has actually improved, that is from 8th to 7th in 2024. So now let us actually see about the climate change performance index, and this we can actually do after a 1 minute break where I can actually sip some water and start with it. Okay, so the climate change performance index, let me see how many more of global indices we have so that we can quickly move on to our next one. Indian indices. Okay, we have 5 more and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of India's. Okay, let's just quickly get started. So, climate change performance index, this compares what has been the performance of the climate, by different countries with respect to the climate change, that is around 63 countries and the EU. Okay, so this is actually to increase the transparency. Okay, transparency in international climate politics. Who publishes it? It is by German Watch. Very important. That was Yale Center. Okay, along in partnership with WEF. This is German Watch, the New Climate Institute and Climate Action Network. Okay, the methodology is there are 4 key categories. So, what are the 4 key categories? First of all, with respect to climate change, always it's how much of emissions you do of the greenhouse gas emissions. Okay, the next one is, okay, now you have given, or you can say you are releasing the greenhouse gases. Now how are you going to switch to your renewable energy, and how well are you going to use the energy? And finally, this is all possible by use of what you should have a proper climate policy. So these are the 4 important indicators based on which this calculates. Okay, this index actually ranks. Next one, so see here, the climate policy 20%, energy use and the renewable energy and GHG emissions, it actually weighs 40%. And the top positions are not occupied. 1, 2, 3, third positions are not occupied. And the 4th position again is Denmark. Okay. And India is actually in the 7th position. Okay. So this has actually moved from the 8th spot. The next one is food waste index. So how much of food is going wasted in a year? Okay, so you know the per capita wastage of food is 79 kgs, it seems, per person. So it's bad. So food waste index has actually been, it has actually assessed that over 1 billion meals were discarded daily by households worldwide in 2022. Okay, when the multidimensional poverty, people are dying with undernutrition, wasting, stunting, we are throwing away food. So you have to be very, very judicious in utilizing all these resources, specifically the food. Okay, because it's not just the money that you pay, it is actually the effort behind it. Okay, so who cooks the food? There's a lot of mental and emotional thinking that goes into preparation. Okay, so please understand and then use your resources judiciously. So this is a report that is actually released and it was launched in 2021. Okay, so UNEP comes up with this, that is the United Nations Environment Program, and the Waste and Resource Action Program, that is RAP. Okay, which is a non-profit organization. Okay, next, the index aims to see, it actually aims to tell us that we need to reduce the food waste that we are actually releasing, or you can say that we are producing every day, because it so many billion food that we saw, right? How much was the number? We actually saw 1 billion meals were discarded. Okay, and we need to remember our SDG target 12, which talks about what? Sustainable consumption practices. Okay, and specifically if you see, The target 12.3 speaks about halving, or you can say bring the half or bring the waste of food items by half at the consumer and retail levels by 2030. So by minimizing the losses across the production and the supply chains. Okay, so wherever, whichever section, whether in the supply chain the food is getting wasted, we have to try to minimize it. Okay, so this is what they are saying. And also, you should not, food does not mean it's just the cooked food, the ones which are harvested also is a part of food. Okay, you should not waste it. Then UNEP, the key mandate. Okay, so first of all, the UN conference on the human environment actually brought this particular UNEP in the year 1972. Okay, and also we saw, right, the Bonn Convention, that is on migratory species, that was signed under UNEP. That is how you need to connect it. Okay, so this is there to find solutions to the triple planetary crisis. Okay, these are all brownie points or the buzzwords you need to use. What are the triple planetary crisis? One is actually your climate change, next is actually your pollution, and next one is your biodiversity loss. And what is the governing body of this is the United Nations Environment Assembly. Okay, and this is the highest decision making body. Okay, anything on the environment you need to, it actually helps in taking the decision. The publications that is actually given by this UNEP: emissions gap report, important, emissions, UNEP. Next is adaptation gap report, anything with emission, how do you adapt to it. Next is global environment outlook, that is emission gap report, and then you have the global environment outlook, and then invest into a healthy planet, as well as the adaptation gap report. All these are by UNEP. Now prepare a table and then write all these organizations. UNEP comes up with what, UNDP comes up with what, and so on. Okay, the campaigns is actually brought about as Billion Tree Campaign, Clean Up the World, Earth Hour, World Environment Day, etc. are all initiatives by UNEP. Okay, so what are the key highlights? It says that the total food waste is around 1.05 billion tons. Okay, so globally this much of food has actually been wasted. The consumer level waste is around 19%. Okay, of the food that is available to the consumers was wasted. The supply chain loss, it is 13%. The next one, household waste, this is majority of the food waste. This is around 631 million tons, which is 60% of the total food waste. And then the daily volume of food is what? 70 kg of food per year. Okay, and individual alone is wasting around 79 kg of food per year. This is such a, red flag. Next one. Let's move towards a sustainable trade index. Okay, so how sustainable can a country's trade practices or the policies be? So that is what is called as sustainable trade index. Okay, so sustainable trade index in 2024's index, and this has actually been brought by a foundation, that is the Hindrich Foundation, as well as the IMD. Okay, so this has come together with the sustainable trade index where India ranks 23rd. Okay, so this actually shows the strong economic growth, but also there are challenges in the social and environmental sustainability. Okay, so when you take trade practices, you should not leave away any kind of the social progress or the environmental sustainability that you're aiming. Okay, so it has to encompass all this. Okay, next one, it is published by Hindrich Foundation and IMD. It ranks the countries on the ability to achieve what? Sorry, ability to achieve the sustainable trade by balancing all these three things: the social, economic, and the environmental sustainability. So what do you mean by sustainable trade? Trade should benefit both the partners. At the same time, it has to have a balance between your social well-being, your environmental sustainability, and the economic growth. Okay, so this is the what to say, definition given by it. The methodology is, I told you, economic growth, the social well-being, and the environmental sustainability. Environmental sustainability is what? Simply, what is your carbon footprint? What is the pollution that you cause? Okay, as well as the societal advancement is what? In terms of whether your labor conditions are fine, whether your education is good, and whether in case of gender equality you are performing well. So parity. Okay, and then with respect to your business, that is why India has come up with the ease of doing business, right? How competitive your business can be, how openness can, how much of openness can your trade actually give, and how much of resilience or financial resilience that your trade practices have. All that is actually included over here. Okay. Next, if we see the top most sustainable trade economies, the first one is New Zealand, and the next followed by UK. The 10th one is United States, and you also have Japan, and very sadly India is not here. Let's actually see. So if you see in terms of environment, it is actually 100 environmental sustainability, and in terms of societal well-being also it is 100. Then 86 is on economics, and the 100 is overall score. Okay, 100 on 100 is New Zealand, the top 10 sustainable trade economy. The next one, if you see, where do we find, okay, fine. So key global findings, you saw New Zealand, and then you saw United Kingdom, followed by US, Japan, and all those things. Then India's performance, we actually ranked 23rd. The overall score is 24, and all this is not important because we have done this much on economic growth and how much of strong performance we've done in trade as well as a financial resilience, all that it shows. Then the societal advancement, okay, so how much of challenges we have. So we are in a score of 13.3 because we have lot of challenges with respect to gender equality, etc. Then environmental resilience also, you know about the status of our air quality. And then the challenges that we have, of course, it is poverty as well as environmental issues. So this is what this particular this one is saying. So see the performance of India. This is actually your environmental growth. This is 62.3. Then 13.3 is your societal advancement, and finally your environmental resilience score is 43.1. Okay. Next one is nature conservation. So India again 176 of 180 countries in the global nature conservation index of 2024, and it is one of the worst performers in biodiversity conservation. So biodiversity conservation, we also saw, right, recently only India has updated its national strategic action plan, which is in line with the Kunming protocol on conservation of biodiversity. Please do recall, link and visit the previous courses to see. Okay, so what is this, is that it actually assesses how well the countries actually balance the conservation efforts against the development that it is doing. Okay, so it is published by Goldman Sonfeld School of Sustainability and Climate Change, and then Ben Gurion University of Negev, as well as biodb.com. Again, not very important. Again, it actually focuses on 4 key markers. One, that is for biodiversity. What is for development, what you need, definitely you need land. So lot of encroachment is actually happening. So there has to be, first, in order to conserve biodiversity and to prevent this rehabilitation, you have to have proper land management. Okay, so there has to be sustainable use of land, as well as the urbanization impact on the land has to be taken care of. Okay, then whatever are the threats that come to biodiversity in case of deforestation or habitat fragmentation, that has to be taken care of. The next one is your governance. Okay, so there has to be proper conservation laws and policies, and finally there has to be proper long term risk resilience to the biodiversity. Okay, so all these have to be there. So based on which this is calculated. So best performer Luxembourg, Estonia. Worst performer Kiribati, Turkey, Iraq, and Micronesia. Okay, and then you have India 176th. So overall score we have is 45.5, and we actually have the low rank because of inefficiency on all those markers that I told you. Land management is not proper, and then marine conservation gaps is actually there because we are not performing well on the exclusive economic zone. And then biodiversity threats is there because of fragmentation. Then you have illegal wildlife trade. Okay, so that is one of the trade practices that illegal trade practices many of the species are facing, including your olive ridley turtle. and also excessive use of pesticides, fertilizers that actually alters your composition of the soil. So soil infertility. Okay, so all those are the reasons why we are there, and we are also the fourth largest illegal wildlife trader of the world. Okay, the next one is global livability index. Okay, so the global livability index, which city is actually fit for us to live. Okay, so surprisingly Vienna, Austria has become the most livable city. Okay, so published by Economist Intelligence Unit, and this ranks 173 cities worldwide based on different factors. So let us actually see. So what is the kind of healthcare that your particular city has? What is the culture your city has? What is the environmental sustainability standards or frameworks your particular city has? Your infrastructure and the stability, okay, with respect to your civil unrest, with respect to your crime rates, all that. So depending on all that, you actually rank a city as a livable city or not. So this is an annual ranking that evaluates the livability of the city worldwide. It measures how comfortable and sustainable the cities are for the residents. As I told you, the Economist Intelligence Union is there, which is a research and analysis body that actually gives, and there are 5 broad categories. I told you: stability, healthcare, culture, education and infrastructure. That includes not only your offices with respect to your water supply, your waste management, your transportation and everything, housing, energy, all that this calculates. The global finding is Vienna, Austria is the topper with 98.4, and the 10th is actually your Auckland, New Zealand. So and also Osaka, Japan. This is 96.0. Vancouver and all the Zurich, Switzerland, all these are also part of the best livable cities. So Vienna and Western European nations actually top. You have the Osaka as well as Auckland in the Asia Pacific cities. Okay. Moving forward, the 10 least livable. So this is Damascus of Syria because of the war or the volatile situations it's actually going, followed by Tripoli in Libya, and then you have the Algiers of Algeria, all these areas because of weak infrastructure and poor governance and the civil conflicts of the wars that are going on. Major factors includes the political instability and all those things. Okay, so these are the major factors for their low ranking. India's performance. So 5 Indian cities have actually performed well, or they have featured in the ranking. One is Delhi and then Mumbai. Okay, so which actually has the rank of 141. Where are we? Okay, so 141st, and then other cities are Chennai, Ahmedabad, Bengaluru, etc. Okay, so this is what it is. The next one, Energy Transition Index. Okay, so this is by the World Economic Forum. Very, very important. So what is the progress of the city towards sustainable, affordable as well as secure energy transition? So what are the efforts which are made by the countries? So based on this, the World Economic Forum assesses or ranks 120 countries and gives out this energy transition index. Okay, so now let us actually quickly see. It is a global ranking that evaluates how well the countries are transitioning to sustainable energy. Okay, so it measures in terms of energy security, your environmental sustainability and affordability. So WEF actually gives it out, and it actually is based on 2 main dimensions. One is your system performance. Okay, so how secure your system is and what is the sustainability measures you actually have and the access to the energy. Next is how ready is your economy to transition from the non-renewable to the renewable sources. So this is about. Okay, next one, the top 10 countries in the energy transition are, okay, first one is Sweden, again Denmark, Finland. So you have the Scandinavian countries, and then you have the 10th one as Netherlands. Okay, so northern European nations actually lead the transition, which equally contribute to what to say, lesser carbon dioxide emission despite the economic growth that they are showing. Very good. So next one, if you see the bottom 10, first one is Jamaica, followed by Senegal, Zimbabwe, Pakistan, and you have the Democratic Republic of Congo as the worst because of political instability. There also lack of investment by the investors, and they have fossil fuel dependency. All this actually hinder the progress that they make towards the transition. Okay, so these are the global findings. The next one, India's performance. we have improved actually, but not significantly. So from 67th position to 63rd position. Okay, and you have to here remember the Panchamrit targets of India with respect to transitioning towards the renewable energy. Okay, and if you see, we are the world's fourth largest renewable market and we need to make use of this. However, we have implementation challenges that is actually over there, and still we are dependent heavily on coal as well as the fossil fuels. Okay, so for our energy mix. Now, we will quickly look at these indices that have been released by India. With that, we will be done with all the global as well as what? Your Indian indices. Okay. Okay. So, first let us, as I already told you, first one is actually your fiscal health index. Okay. So, what is the revenue, what is the expenditure, your capital expenditure, your revenue expenditure, how much of debt obligation you have and how well we maintain that. This report is released by the Niti Aayog, and then moving on we will look at the institutional ranking, okay, of by the Ministry of Education. Then we will look at the SDG India Index, which is the country, which is the state that has performed comparatively better, or how have we overall performed on these 17 goals. We will see. Next, moving on, we will see the financial inclusion index, how many people have the access to the financial services like your creating the bank accounts, the ATM services, and then the the digital payments. Okay, all that we will see. And finally, we will have the energy efficiency index by the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. Okay, so quickly let's move to the first index, that is to the national this is the fiscal health index that is come up by Niti Aayog, which is the National Institution for Transforming India, in order to see how our fiscal governance is and how better India can actually do. We have come up with this fiscal health index. Okay, so what is fiscal health? It's the financial stability and the capacity of a country, okay, or a government to see how sustainable is the government, what to say, in managing the revenues, the expenses as well as the debt obligations efficiently. So this is what it is, and here this actually is an indicator of how stable your economy is, okay, and how you're moving forward in order to achieve your developmental goals. Okay, so this is what is your fiscal health. So this is actually developed by Niti Aayog, and who gives the data? It is the Controller and the Auditor General. The base year is 2022-2023, very important, and this actually evaluates 18 major states that drive India's economic growth, and we will see who are the achievers, forerunners, etc., to evaluate the fiscal health of the states and highlight the disparities that actually exist between different states, and so that you bring about target interventions. Okay, next one, it aligns or it supports the Viksit Bharat by 2047. This is 100 years of independence. Before that, we actually have to have a fiscal discipline. Okay, next one, the methodology which is used. So first, what is the quality of, so first, what is the quality of your expenditure that you're actually doing? Okay, so what is the sectors in which you are investing? Okay, and the social sector spending is taken up in this particular indicator. So quality of expenditure. Next is revenue mobilization. Okay, so what is the ability of the country or the different states to generate revenue apart from the taxes that they collect? Next one is fiscal, what is it? Fiscal prudence. Okay, so if you have fiscal deficit, or how much should be your fiscal deficit be? Okay, all that actually have to be calculated. And the next one is the debt index, that is what is the total amount of debt burden that you actually have. And finally the debt sustainability. Okay, so what is your debt to your gross state domestic product ratio, and whatever is the revenue you get out of it, what is the interest that you're paying towards your debt obligation, whether you have gotten loan from the central government or any other institutions or banks. Okay, so this is the methodology that is actually used. So quality of expenditure, revenue mobilization, fiscal prudence, debt index and sustainability. Now if you see, the states are categorized this way only. So the achiever, if the score is above 50. Okay, so here you have top performers. You have Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Goa, Jharkhand. Odisha is actually a top performer. Know this. Okay, so the next one, if it is 40 to 50, it is a front runner. So you need to know, if they ask which one of the following categories are not a part of the fiscal health index. If they ask, then you need to know. So achiever is actually Odisha. Then next you have strong financial performance by states like Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Telangana, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, and then whoever has a score of 25 to 40, they are called as a performer. Achiever, then front runner, then you have the performer, where Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, Bihar and Haryana are there. And finally, aspirational, which actually has a score less than or equal to 25, like Kerala, West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh and Punjab. Okay, so this is why you will also have the dispute that Kerala has with respect to borrowing from the central government, right? Because its debt has currently increased to a significant extent. Okay, so these are the categories. So top performing states, you saw Odisha is actually the overall in the overall index, it's actually an achiever. Okay, and then it is excelling in both the debt index and the debt sustainability rankings, and Goa and Telangana are also there, which are performing very strongly. Next one is the NIRF ranking, National Institutional Ranking Framework, which is by the Ministry of Education. Okay, so what is this? This is actually ranking the higher education institutions in India, like your IITs, IIMs, etc. Okay, so Ministry of Education actually comes up with this. The methodology is, see, these weightages are very, very important. It actually uses around 5 parameters. Okay, first one, how is the teaching, what are your learning, as well as your resources, that is given a weightage of 30%. And how much of the research and the professional practice, that is given 30% of the weightage. And when a person graduates, what is the outcome? So graduation outcomes. Then how much of inclusivity that you do, that is actually 20%. And the final one is perception. Okay, so this is actually 10%. Okay, so graduation outcome is 20%, this is 30, 30, 20. Outreach and inclusivity is also 10%. So if they ask which actually weighs the most, it is teaching, learning and resources. The implementing agency is National Board of Accreditation in collaboration with the this is not that important. You just have to know who releases the ranking. So new additions to it, new categories are actually introduced over here, which are state public universities, the open universities and the skill universities are also now included. Apart from the national universities, these are also included. What are they? The state public universities, open universities, as well as your skill universities. Next one, see your ranking over here. You have teaching and learning, so 30%. Then you have research, that is again 30%. And then you have graduation outcome 20, outreach and inclusivity, and finally your perception. Okay, so under this again you have the student strength, faculty strength, then faculty who has the PhD, and how much of financial resources that you're utilizing. Under that you have different parameters. Again, under research you actually again have different parameters, like what are the citations you have given, what are the publications you are actually doing, what are the research projects that you have carried out. And under graduation outcome, what are the placements, what are the university examinations, what are the rankings, the salary, all that comes here. And then outreach, you actually have to talk about how many people are from the different regions, so regional diversity, then women diversity, all that has been spoken. And then perception. Okay, so finally this is actually done. So key highlights, you can see IIT Madras is the top position in both overall and engineering categories. Okay, so overall and engineering categories. Then IISc Bangalore, that is, it dominates the universities and research institution categories. Then you have IIM Ahmedabad, New Delhi, AIIMS, and then Jamia. This is not important. Okay, this is not important. Just know what is the NIRF ranking, who comes up with it, what are the different weightages. Okay, so now moving on to the third one, SDG India Index. So here you actually have the Niti Aayog that has come up with the SDG India Index. You need to know what are the 17 SDGs. Okay, so first it starts with no poverty and then no hunger. So there has to be good health and well-being, then focusing on the quality education should be there. Once you go to school, there is gender equality, and there you actually talk about the sanitation as well as clean energy. So clean water and sanitation and affordable energy. And after your schooling, you actually go to decent work, and there has to be economic growth. When you are in a proper industry, you have to focus on innovation and infrastructure. All these are 9. Then the 10th one is reduced inequalities. Okay, and then you move to a city. I told you like a story, right, earlier in one of your environment and ecology classes. So the 11th one is your sustainable cities and communities, and how it is going to be sustainable only if there is responsible consumption. Okay, responsible consumption and production. And then what happens, you have to focus on the environment as well. Okay, so the climate action, then life below water, life on land, and all this is possible only when there is peace, justice and strong institutions. And finally you call for partnership for the goals. These are the 17 goals. Okay, so 17 goals in order to achieve our agenda by 2030. This was adopted in 2015, and this actually replaced the millennium development goals. Okay, so here this actually works with the motto of leaving no one behind. Okay, so it also addresses poverty, the degradation, other causes or the social ills like the hunger, peace, etc. Next one. So the SDG India Index is Niti Aayog, launched in 2018 in order to track how Indian states and the UTs have performed in achieving the SDG targets. This is in collaboration with the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, United Nations and the Global Green Growth Institute. What is the methodology? Okay, so here the score is from 0 to 100. So a score of 100 actually means you have achieved it in full strength. Okay, of the 2030 targets. State and UTs, they are categorized into 4 groups again. This is what? This is again achiever. This is the same as we saw in the previous one. The next one is front runner. This is also the same one. Okay. The third one is actually a performer, and next one is your aspirant. Okay, so this is how they are classified. And if you are an achiever, it is 100. Front runner again 65 to 99 is your score. The next one is 50 to 65. The next one is 0 to 50 or 49. Okay, so overall improvement, there has actually been there overall improvement. That is, we have improved from the score of 66 to right now India is in 71. See here, 71 India's SDG score. Okay, so significant advancements have been there in goal 1. In what is goal 1? No poverty. Okay, then goal 8, goal 13, all this we have actually performed better, and very significant improvements have actually been seen in goal 13, that is climate action. Okay, next one. Contributing factors are different schemes and initiatives that have been brought about by the Indian government. Okay, for example, Awas Yojana, where construction of homes, okay, affordable homes that you give around 1 point, or you can say 85 lakh to 1 crore houses have been given to the beneficiaries. Next one, there is proper sanitation. This is why you call it as Swachh Bharat, which aims to make India open defecation free by construction of clean toilets. Okay, by bringing proper sanitary standards in India. PM Ujjwala Yojana, which is actually providing the households with gas or the LPG connections. The next one, Jal Jeevan Mission, which is affordable as well as tap water connection to every household. Ayushman Bharat, under which you have the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, which actually focuses on the health of the people. Then finally, you have the National Food Security Act, which actually produces food to around 80 crore people, and then direct benefit transfer through PM Jandan accounts. Okay, so these are the performances of different goals that India has actually done. So top performing states with respect to this SDG is Uttarakhand, followed by Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Goa. The lagging states include Bihar, Jharkhand, Nagaland, Meghalaya, etc. Top performing UTs, Chandigarh, Jammu and Kashmir, etc. And top gainer states between 2018 and 2023 is again Uttar Pradesh, followed by top gainer means most of incentives that has been given by the government in order for you to perform better. So that is Uttar Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir and so on. Okay, so you need to know just the top performing states over here. Next one, Financial Inclusion Index. This has actually been brought about by the Reserve Bank of India. So if you see it actually rose. If you see the score, we have increased to 64.1 when compared to the earlier 60.1 in March 2023. Okay. So let me just have a sip of water. So above the RBI's Financial Inclusion Index, we will see. After this, we will have one more ranking. Okay, so let us continue here. So RBI's Financial Inclusion Index, what is the extent of financial inclusion? I told you, right? All the citizens must have the access to the digital infrastructure or the financial inclusion like the bank accounts, your pension accounts and the digital payment methods, etc. Okay, so 0 is actually your complete exclusion and 10 means full, I mean 100 means full inclusion. Okay, the parameters that are used is how much of access you have, how much of usage you do, and what is the quality. Okay, what is the quality of the financial services that are available. Very important to know, it does not have a base year. They did not take any base year into consideration. Okay, so access, usage and quality, and there is no base year for this particular financial inclusion index. So they won't say that there is no base year of financial inclusion index. Recently, as per the RBI's financial inclusion index, the base year is 2017. If they say that, you should know to identify this is wrong. Okay. So now we will move forward to see the government schemes for financial inclusion. You have the Atal Pension Yojana for the pension benefits. Okay, so you need to know what is the age group of the beneficiaries who can be here. So Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Yojana, this is nothing but your accidental insurance scheme. Okay, so people from what age group to what age group you should know. Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, opening of bank accounts for people. Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Yojana, this is nothing but your life insurance. Okay, then you have Stand Up India, which is giving, you know, a lot of opportunities for women. Okay, opportunities for women entrepreneurs. And then Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, this is also giving financial loans to small enterprises like the MSME or to other sectors like fisheries, you know, poultry, etc. So this is the Mudra Yojana. Okay, so these are different government schemes for financial inclusion, and India's score has actually increased, that we already saw, and we are actually seeing the growth across the different sub indices. Okay, so different sub indices were actually there. So our score has increased to 64 from this particular 60. Okay, now let's move further and understand. Oh, that's it. Yeah, we have actually done better. That's what they are saying over here. Next one, energy efficiency index. This is the last article that we will be discussing. Okay, so what do you mean by energy efficiency? How sustainable and how fast you are able to transform, and how environmentally sustainable your utilization of energy is, and how much of renewable energy you are actually using. All this is there. So the Bureau of Energy Efficiency has come up with the 5th edition of this report, that is the Energy Efficiency Index. Okay, now let's move forward. So about this state energy efficiency index, this states or ranks 36 different states and UTs in energy efficiency across 7 demand sectors. Okay, so in buildings how they are, in industries how they are, in the municipal services how they are, in transportation, agriculture, as well as your distribution companies, that is your discoms, how they are. Okay, and the cross sector initiatives. This actually helps us to drive energy efficiency policies, okay, at the local level as well as the state level. Then it actually highlights the best practices and encourages the healthy competition between different states. Next, track the progress, okay, so that you actually have an idea about India's energy footprint. Next one is institutionalize the data capture. Not this is, I mean, it's not that important. You should have a database specifically. That's what this article is saying. The development is by the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. It's a statutory body, important statutory body. It's not an NGO, it is a statutory body under the Ministry of Power in collaboration with Alliance for an Energy Efficient Economy. This actually comes up, okay. So this is the 5th edition of it, and this is based on 65 different indicators, and again you have score of 100 points that is based on front runner, achiever. See, front runner has 60 over here. Earlier, achiever used to have the maximum, right? So, front runner, achiever, contender and aspirant. So, here you need to see whether this is actually the same with respect to the other parameters which we discussed in the previous article, okay. That is not financial inclusion. Before that, there was a topic, right? So, front runner, achiever, contender as well as aspirant, okay. So, this is the scores. And top performers, if you see, Karnataka has actually top performed in group 1, which is in group 1, then Andhra Pradesh, Assam as well as Chandigarh. If you see here, these are the different sectors, okay, different sectors and their weightage. You have buildings 22%, 17, then 11%, 16 as well as 15% to the cross sector, then discoms, agriculture, that is actually occupying 8%, etc. Okay, so that's it. We have completed around 27 topics today of the reports, and I mean the indices of, the global indices as well as the Indian indices. So with this, we have completed the section of schemes, the government initiatives and programs, as well as reports and indices, international as well as national. So thank you so much for all your patience and for watching and following us so diligently. And like by tomorrow or day after, we will start with the next important section, that is the important international organizations and the regions in focus, which UPSC has been asking and laying eye on these days. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. We will definitely catch up in another live session very, very soon. So thank you, and we'll meet in the next session. प्रसन्नजित, कुछ खाने के लिए दे दो यार, फ्रूट्स वेंडा, स्नैक्स दे दो.